What do you say, everybody? And it's great to have you here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. We're going to talk Alabama sports tonight. We're going to talk a lot of basketball today, or whatever else you guys want to talk about. Alabama has seen a couple of some key players transfer, and maybe that's because they're going to get some key players in at the linebacker spot. So we'll get into that tonight. Of course, I started out with basketball because the Crimson Tide right now are on the verge of wrapping up the SEC regular season, something that hasn't happened a lot lately. As a matter of fact, the last time they did that was in 2002, but they beat Vanderbilt on Saturday after having their game with Texas A&M postponed. So another win. And Alabama clinches at least a share of the SEC. And, if they win one more, or it's LSU and I believe Missouri right there, they lose, Alabama's in. And it's going to kind of changes, but no one's catching Alabama. They're out to a 13-1 conference start. It's really been phenomenal watching the basketball team. And we're going to talk about that tonight. So we're going to get together with you guys. This is your show. I want to hear from all of you as well. 205-850-0883 is the number. So call in and, we'll take the show wherever you guys want to take it tonight. I'm Mick Gillespie, and it is really a pleasure to be with you here on Bama Insider. Let me tell you about Bama Insider. Subscribe, like our channel here on YouTube. 50,000 subscribers, and it's you guys. It's you guys that have really made this channel what it is right now. We talk, Alabama sports every single day of the week here. You can go to BamaInsider.com. That's the Alabama rival site, and you can get the latest information on the Crimson Tide. And what's great about that is that we have experts. Kyle Henderson, who is our managing editor, following Alabama every day. Andrew Bone, who has been doing recruiting since quite frankly, Alabama wasn't any good. When Mike Shula was there, he started in the mid-2000s, and he's still rocking and rolling. So we got Bone. Tony Tsoukalos is our beat writer. And we just try to, talk football and keep you guys updated. But what's been great is that we've actually had a lot of basketball to talk about. So appreciate all of you guys also getting the comment section and throw those comments out there. I love that as well. Brett says, have a great show. Roll Tide, my friend. Yeah, I guess you're working right now. I'm working right now. So we're both working right now. But love all you guys. And what's been great is that I remember Kyle telling me this. He's like, hey, you're going to get used to some of the people who are part of, this site, because they're going to be active on the message boards. They're going to call the shows. And so appreciate all you guys. 205-850-0883. Give me a call. And let's talk some Alabama sports tonight. So let's get started with this basketball team. What a win it was for the Crimson Tide, knocking off Vanderbilt. And it wasn't an easy win, but when you're the team that everyone else is chasing in the SEC, it's not going to be easy. They beat Vandy 82-78. It was a game that Alabama trailed for a big part of it. But the Crimson Tide now, 13 conference victories. It's the first time that they won 13 games in the SEC since Wimp was the coach back in 86 and 87. So, that's just kind of putting in perspective how good this team is playing right now. The Commodores made things really interesting. They hit some three-pointers late. But Alabama made 3 free throws, which is something that this team's done all year. And they're the number 8 team in the country. And, they avoid an upset. But you know what? When you're a team like Alabama, you got to expect to be pushed. And if they're going to make a run in the tournament, you expect to have games like this. So a win for the Crimson Tide. And the standings right now, very favorable as far as Alabama is concerned. And, it's really one of those situations right now where you want guys to get healthy. And fortunately for Alabama, that's kind of the situation. Bruner's actually came back and played, was rusty, didn't have a huge stat game, but played, and that's really good news. When you have someone bouncing back from an injury, you just want them at this point of the season. And Alabama's lucky that they're not going to have to push here very hard to wrap up the regular season and win the championship. But it's one of those deals for the Crimson Tide where you still have to push to win the games. You don't want to get into bad habits with a lot of room to play with. But just to look at the standings right now, I said that Missouri was a team to watch out for. As a matter of fact, since they beat Alabama, their only loss coming to Missouri, they've slid back. So standings right now in the SEC have Alabama 3.5 games up with basically them only having 4 games left, or 3, depending on what happens with the Texas A&M game. They were supposed to play Texas A&M, and of course, Texas got this really, really strange winter storm. And like they were without power down there, and in places like Houston that never get that cold, had to deal with that. So I'm not sure what the situation is on the schedule, and if that game will be made up or postponed or canceled. So this year of COVID, I mean, anything's possible. And this is the first year I ever remember cancellations and stuff, but it's happened in every sport. LSU and Arkansas are the 2 teams 3.5 games back. Well, Alabama's hammered LSU twice this year, so they got the tiebreaker. So really, it comes down to Arkansas, and Alabama and Arkansas will match up this week. So they'll play Wednesday at 8:00, and we'll be able to watch that on ESPN2. So both teams are ranked. So this is a real good test for Alabama. It'll be on the road. No date yet has been set for Arkansas's rematch with Texas A&M either. So that's 2 games now that Texas A&M is going to have to, to basically figure out when they're going to play. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Again, it's 205-850-0883. And I appreciate all you guys tonight calling in. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
My name's Devon from DC. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Devon? I used to live in College Park, so I know that area really well. How you doing?
Okay, I'm like 10 minutes from there. I'm good, man. I'm good. I just came on the segment. Is this just basketball, or is this football as well?
No, we'll talk football. Let's get into it. I was going to talk a little bit about the linebackers transferring and possibly Henry To'o coming to the capstone, but we'll take it anywhere you want. What do you want to get into tonight?
Well, that's what I wanted to get into. I wanted to talk a little bit about the transfer of Ben Davis and A.L. Cahill. I figured both of them probably would leave. I think if Alabama can get Henry To'o to show up and choose them, then you can really – that defense goes to another level, because you can slide Christian Harris to the middle. He's been in the system 2 years. He knows all the calls. And then you could really – that would give them a duo on par with the duo they had when I want to say the edge rushers were Hightower and the number 90. I can't think of the other one when they won it back-to-back years. Right. The edge rushers they had on the outside. I can't think of his last name. But then you also had the middle linebacking core of Rashaan Evans and Dylan Mosley for a year. And you also had Anthony Jennings and the other guys as well. So I think as a whole, if you could get him, if he chooses Alabama, that's going to be huge, because the defense is going to have to be a little better next year with so much offensive productivity leaving. You don't expect that offense to be as great as it was. Still going to be very good because they got athletes and talent everywhere. But I think getting him would solidify that front seven, I believe. I think it would just make it that much more tough to move the ball on, run the ball. And he's also good in coverage. He's a good cover guy. So I think that'd be a good move if he decides to choose Bama. I think that's why you saw the two maybe get out of town, because they may see the writings on the wall based on what To'o's dad said. So
yeah.
Just wanted to put that out there.
No, I agree. I mean, look, he's arguably the best linebacker returning to the SEC. And really the issue has been, well, first off, he made a bad decision when he decided to go to Tennessee and not come to Alabama as a recruit. And that's a risk that you take when a new coach takes over an unproven program. Hey, like they promise you're going to get a chance to get in there and play. And he's done everything right. I mean, he's been a model citizen, a leader on his team. He's an excellent football player. He gets bad grades on coverage, but he hasn't really been around a lot of good players. I mean, when you come to Alabama and you're not trying to play three different spots at once, all you got to do is take care of the things in front of you. Good players become great players. And I think that'd be the biggest, that's going to be what I'm most excited about if he ends up coming. And from what I understand, the only thing that he's waiting on is to see what happens with this one-time NCAA waiver rule, which everyone I've talked to expects that the NCAA is going to allow a first-time transfer to transfer without penalty and have to sit out. Now, that's NCAA, and that would also work in the SEC if it happens. It would just be a one-time thing, and I guess it has a lot to do with COVID and everything else. But I feel bad for To'o. He went to Tennessee to play for Jeremy Pruitt. Jeremy Pruitt obviously isn't the coach anymore, and I just feel like it's fair for the players. If the coach ends up getting fired and leaves the program or takes another job, I know you're making a commitment to that university. And look, there was a time when Alabama could not keep coaches, right? But believe it or not, I remember those days. And it would have really been tough on the program to keep losing guys every time you moved the coach out. But at the same time, I think it's fair for the players.
Yep, I agree. Also, I wanted to say, basketball-wise, I've been keeping up with the Tide basketball team. I love Herb Jones. I think he's the most, he is what he's a winner. He defines grit. He defines tenacity. He defines cerebral play. Nate Oates is doing a heck of a job, but Herb Jones is the glue that keeps everything together because he does so many things for that team nightly. He can score, he can defend, he can rebound, he can pass. He just does everything well. I love the guy. I think he's such a special player.
Yeah, and I remember just talking about you being from DC. I remember some of the great teams that the University of Maryland had in basketball. Steve Francis's birthday, I think, is today, right? And
it is.
Stevie Francis, and then I can go back to when Joe Smith and Keith Booth were kind of the guys that are doing the same thing that this Alabama team is, and just trying to get them back on that stage. And then Steve Francis, and then eventually Maryland had Juan Dixon and Steve Blake and won a national
Lonnie
championship.
Baxter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Lonnie Baxter.
Yeah, Lonnie
but I'm going to tell you, the glue to that team was Byron Mouton. He plays a lot like Herb Jones did. He was the guy that no one talked about, that defended the best player on the other team on the perimeter, made open shots, can handle the ball, can just do things. And Mouton was a lot like Jones. I think Jones is a better overall player, but they kind of remind me of that glue that you need on any team that's trying to make a run to win something.
Yeah. Didn't Mouton transfer from Tulane?
Yeah, he transferred from Tulane his junior year. Played the last two, and they went to the Final Four both years, lost to Duke. And the first one when they were up 22, and then came back and won it their senior years with Lonnie, him, Steve, and Juan Dixon.
I've always felt like that game that Maryland lost to Duke in the Final Four was some of the worst officiating that I ever saw in a basketball game. I can still remember watching that, and there were a lot of offensive fouls. And just looking at like kind of where college basketball is right now, it really is phenomenal to me that so many of the blue blood teams in college basketball aren't any good. I mean, look at the SEC. Kentucky's no good this year. I don't think they're going to make the tournament, although I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't run the SEC tournament and figure out a way in. Duke's trying to get in. Mike Krzyzewski normally has those guys in there. Roy Williams' team isn't any good this year, North Carolina. And you look through college basketball, even Maryland's not that good of a team this year. They won the Big Ten last year. So it's just kind of weird how things have kind of flip-flopped. And, I wonder why that is. Is it the lack of practice? Because, the players are there. And I look at this Alabama team and the fact that they're a real cohesive unit. They play together. These are guys that have been around for a while. You talk about Herb Jones. I mean, he is like Byron Mouton because he brings that energy into the game, positive force. And I think he's a better player all around than Mouton. I could see Jones being an NBA player one day and maybe the SEC MVP. But I wonder, do you think that he has the ability to take over a game and lead Alabama like Juan Dixon did for the Terps the year they won the championship?
I think he can do it. He doesn't have to score. See, that's the thing with him. He can do it in ways that Juan Dixon wouldn't do it. Now, Juan Dixon was a very good on-ball defender, a very good slasher, and a very good catch and shoot off the flex offense. He wasn't a shot creator. He could, but he didn't. Now, Herb Jones can create a shot. And when Quinterly and Petty and them guys are making shots and Herb Jones is getting downhill, he can affect the whole game. Now, his effect will come off people making shots off of him, getting them in position to get good shots. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I think he's more of a guy that needs to make guys better. He isn't going to go out and get 25 a night. That's not his kind of game. But he can, when you look at the box score, his assists, his deflections lead the fast break points, and then his points as well, getting to the line. By the end of the night, he's accounted for about 25-30% of what you scored. So that right there is what he does that a lot of people probably don't look at because they don't look at the nuances of the game. If he's not getting 25 points, people aren't looking at that. It's sort of like what you see out of Gonzaga. They score a lot of points, but if you take Jay Ayayi off that team isn't nearly as good. He doesn't score like that, but he does all the little things, the rebounding. I think he had a game where he had 17 rebounds. He's a guard. You know, that's the stuff that people don't look at, unlike me and you who really watch it and understand what we're looking at. They don't look at they look at only box scores. They don't look at what a guy does, how he affects the game in so many ways. And I think that's what this year, the Final Four, if I had to pick right now, it's going to be Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan. And I think, I'm picking heavyweights because I think this is the kind of year where heavyweights should be able to handle it, and you won't see as many upsets. I just think, like you said, a lot of it's the one and done. A lot of it's just the lack of continuity. A lot of it's also with the COVID years. It's been crazy because they really didn't have a lot of time since last March together before they started this season. But I think Herb Jones is capable of getting Alabama. I think with Nate Oates is a great coach. I think they run very good stuff where they get everybody involved. If they're making shots, they're going to defend. If they're making shots, they can get to the Final Four. They can get to Indianapolis and win it all. Well, everybody's going to be in Indianapolis. That's where the whole tournament's going to be. But they can get to the last four. I think they have enough talent to do it. And in this kind of year, I think they're really good. Like, they have a team that is just built to really make a run. They have a team built to make a tournament run. I just see it this year for them. I do.
I really loved and you talk about like kind of a similarity to the Terps. Nate Oates is showing that same Gary Williams ability. Gary Williams used to be the coach at Maryland. What would happen is that he would take a team and develop the team and become better as the season went on. Now, they didn't always have the blue chip recruits. They got some, but he had an uncanny ability to win the guys over. And I'm seeing that same thing in Nate Oates. And I loved his Saturday speech talking about the 7 seniors. I think this is the year where you want to have a lot of seniors just because of everything going on with COVID. And if you want to make a run in the tournament, it's great to have those seniors. And how cool was it that Tyler Barnes got to start this game? Walk
that was
on.
So awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
I think those are the things that happen when the stars of the team come to the coach, and once in a while that magic happens. A lot of coaches wouldn't even do it. They would say, you're going to start, we're going to do it this way. And it was only 3 minutes of Barnes to start the game. But I thought it was great. I thought for his senior day, the way that this team's come together to kind of, from his own teammates to push for him to get that opportunity is an honor that'll be with him the rest of his life. And maybe it's the kind of glue that's going to lead this team into the tournament.
That's true. I agree with that. And I think when you look at, like you said, senior leadership, experience, upperclassmen, they are more accustomed to handling adversity because they've been there, they've done that. The freshmen don't know what adversity is because most of them come in from programs that usually have dominated somewhere. They've been the best player where they were. Things have been a cakewalk. They've been told how good they are. Then when you get to college and you see that, hey, I ain't the best player anymore, now it's a different story. And I think a lot of them have a time to look at Javon Quinterly, how he started out at Nova. Things didn't work out there. And now he's at Alabama and he's playing like the guy that I saw in New York that no one could guard. I mean, the guy can flat play. It just happens like that sometimes. And I think the 4 teams I named, the 3 I already named, Michigan, Gonzaga, and Baylor, they're all heavy on experience. And then I said the 4th team could be Alabama. It could be Iowa. I think Villanova's got a great shot because they're heavy with the upperclassmen. There's a lot of good teams that could make a run. Texas has a very good squad. They are guard heavy. And to win a championship, you need guard play. If you ever notice, every year, the team that gets the best guard play in March wins the national championship. It's not always the best team. It's the team that has the guards playing the best. And that's been pretty much what it is every year. Villanova with their guards and their 4 or 5 guys that can step out and shoot the 3. Carolina with their guard play a couple years ago. Duke when they won in 2015 with the triumvirate with the 4 guards of Quinn Cook and Trey Jones and Grayson Allen as freshmen, and then you had Justice Winslow as a combo guard forward. That's why they won it. Then Jaleel Okafor was dominant, but he wasn't that great in the Final Four. It was the guard play. When they were down, it was the guard play. And then you look even last year before the season stopped, the guard play. Baylor was ranked number 2. Kansas was number 1. The guard play was unbelievable. Villanova was right there again. Alabama has guard play. And when you have guard play, it covers up a lot of things. If you don't turn the ball over, you play solid defense, you rebound, you make your free throws, and you make timely open shots, you can get to the Final Four. And I think they have a team that can do it. I really do.
Crazy we're talking basketball, but Alabama right now, 13-1 in the SEC. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, this team is just making us pay attention to them, and we're going to talk football on this show, but we're going to talk some basketball too. And, as we kind of hang out across the country, 205-850-0883. Look, I look at this team and the fact that Alex Reese came to the coach and said, hey, I got an idea. Let's play Barnes. It's like you can tell that these guys are unselfish. The thing that, and I love that. And I love the coach and Nate Oates. He got the big contract extension. They need to dynamite Coleman Coliseum and build something that is 100 times better. And you can't just build it up to standards. Mal Moore taught us that when they redid football. You got to build it past standards. They need to go and look at the NBA's best arenas. You go to the NBA, it's a really awesome event. You wear a sports coat. There's bars in there, where you go and hang out before the game, nightclub type feel. You get down, your seats are great. I know that you can't do everything in the college setting like that. You got the luxury boxes. You got group areas. Alabama hopefully will upgrade because if Oates is going to be able to, contend for championships, he's going to get one this year. But come back next year when he's not senior laden. He's going to lose 7 seniors this year. And I know he's got some big time players coming in and working on some more. But they're going to need the facilities. The practice gym's great. It's time to take that next step as far as the arena. I don't know how long it takes to, if you dynamite the place, or I don't know how people have said, well, maybe we should just remodel. But I just don't think the building is, you got to start from scratch. I just think you got to start from scratch. And maybe I'm wrong, but he's going to need upgraded facilities to get there. But I'm the thing that concerns me though about this year's team and where they are right now is that they're 5-4 outside of the conference. And I know they played some tough teams. It turns out that Clemson's not a bad team and Stanford's not a bad team and Western Kentucky's okay. But you lose those kind of games. Oklahoma, they didn't play. It's not that they lost to Oklahoma. I didn't like the way that they played in that game. Those to me feel like tournament games. And I guess my question to you, I'm going to reverse roles here, is convince me that Alabama's going to be all right once they get outside of the SEC? Because they're killing it in the SEC right now.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine because I think those losses were all games they could have won. It wasn't like they were embarrassed to any of them. They were right there. They were one possession in Oklahoma. And to me, Oklahoma was the best of that bunch you just named. By far the best team they just named. And Oklahoma were missing some key guys. I think they had 2 or 3 starters out. But people forget Oklahoma's an 8-9 deep team. So those guys that don't start still play 15, 18 solid minutes a game. So it's not like those guys that came in to fill in for them were chopped liver. They were 3- and 4-star recruits as well. Lon Kruger gets great guys there. There's a lot of talent floating around the Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas border. So he gets a lot of them guys. So that loss to Oklahoma, I'm fine with that because that's the one team that if I was saying of the 4 losses outside of the conference, that's the one team I can look at and go, they were the best and we were one possession away. We just didn't get a shot. Lost it on the road, Big 12 SEC tournament. Competition thing they do, but I think the Stanford loss, that's tough to go west and play Stanford. It's not easy to go there and play Stanford. Clemson is an ACC team that is better than people thought. So I think those were also losses outside of the Oklahoma loss. They were early on. So this team was trying to put pieces together as everyone else was. And I think now playing the SEC, they're putting it together. And their one loss was at Missouri. Didn't they come all the way back and cut that lead to like 1 or 2 with a minute to go?
They did. They were down 22
and got a shot block.
Yep.
So they were down at Missouri big. And I left the house and I came back and my son said, Dad, Alabama had a chance to win the game. And I said, what? He said they cut it to 1. And I think it was a drive by, I want to say Quinterly got his drive blocked from behind, didn't see the guy coming, and he laid it up soft, and he blocked it, and they got the run out and got a dunk on the other end and put him up 3, and then I think Bama missed. But I think this team, losing those games are actually good in a lot of ways because you've been so dominant in conference that hey, when I step outside of conference, I can be beat. So that's, to me, I think when you got seniors, when you got a guy like a Herb Jones who's a leader, Petty, who's a leader, came back to be a leader, shown more of a leadership than he's ever shown, losing Kira Lewis and losing guys like Colin Sexton the last couple of years, and to be able to have, I think losing them guys, they were great players, but they were great individual players. This is a team. You get what I'm saying? They were more of the 5-star, go get yourself a bucket type guy, and that's why they're in the pros and they're fine. The NBA game is what they should have been in. They fit the NBA game. They weren't really great in college because they're guys that need the ball and it kind of takes away from others. This team doesn't have that. They have a bunch of guys that can all play off the ball, play with the ball, play through the ball. They move well. They cut. They just do a lot of things well. And I think it's more of a team this year than we've seen in the past. And they've had more talent in the past, but talent doesn't always make you the best team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt. 205-850-0883. We're going to get to some more calls. But before I let you go, Devin, Devon, I want you to know that the thing that worries me isn't that Alabama has a bunch of shooters. It's that when that game happened against Missouri and that game against Oklahoma, and it's tight, right? And it's the end of the game, and you're looking for that guy that's going to give me the ball guy. Your star player, you're Juan Dixon, you from Maryland. We're talking about Maryland, who is that on Alabama? Is that Herb? Because I don't see that. Now, they haven't had a lot of these games. I mean, they've been really just kind of tearing teams up. I mean, they've been destroying teams in the SEC. I'm just curious, and I worry that when you get into the postseason and you're in that spot where you need the Michael Jordan type guy that loves to be in that pressure and can make that big bucket, I just wonder who that's going to be for Alabama, because for them to win, they're going to be in those games where it's going to be, down to the wire, back and forth, and somebody's going to have to want the ball and do something with it with 10 seconds left.
I think it's Herb Jones as far as doing everything. I think the guy that could really take that role, and I've seen him do it in high school a ton of times, was Javon Quinterly. I think he has the ability to take over. He has the ability to go score anytime he feels like it. His issue right now is just understanding when to go and when not to go. I think if they're going to, of course, he can create it as well, and you can find shooters. But if you want a guy to just go get you a bucket, I think you're better suited with him doing it than Herb. Herb just does everything better overall. I think that's what I think.
Great call, man. Roll Tide. Thanks for getting
Thanks,
on,
man. You too.
and call back next time. We're going to be on Wednesday night and be on next Sunday. So great to talk to you.
All right, I'll call.
Take care.
Thanks,
now.
man. You too. Have a good one. Okay?
You too. Roll Tide. Bye.
Roll.
All right, guys. Phone lines open 205-850-0883. Let's go right back to the phone lines again as we talk Alabama sports. Who's this and where are you calling from? You there? I hope I didn't lose you. Going once, going twice, call back. Look, when you get into the situation that Alabama basketball is in right now, it's a great place to be. It really is. They're going to wrap up the SEC. I'm guessing it'll happen next game. If they beat Arkansas, which would be a really good test, then they're going to win the SEC. Everything would absolutely have to collapse for Alabama not to win the SEC. But they're in position right now to clinch and wrap up this this basketball championship and get themselves ready for the SEC tournament. One of the things that when Wimp Sanderson was head coach at Alabama, and there were some years where Mark Gottfried had some teams that were pretty legitimate. Since then, they've been kind of back and forth. I was not a big fan of Anthony Grant at all. I really liked Avery Johnson. Nate Oates, I know it's a small body of work, but in a short time, I wasn't a big fan of getting rid of Avery. And then, you know what? Sometimes when you get the right guy, it really shows. And it's, in this business, it's all about success. And I've talked about the difference between the men's and the women's basketball programs a lot. No accountability for women's basketball and a great amount of accountability for men's. Now, I understand that, that there's a lot more eyeballs on the men's program, but I think if you run every single program with that same standard of excellence, the only thing you're going to do is succeed. I think the women have a chance to make the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2000, but the expectations shouldn't be, barely making it, being a 12 or a 13 seed or something like that. It should be to, win a championship, and compete at the championship level. And honestly, you take a couple of sports out and Alabama competes about at everything. Baseball's gotten better. They're in the top 25. Softball with Coach Murphy is as good as any program in the country. The gymnastics team, when Sarah Patterson was there, they were hanging banners all the time. It's really great to see this basketball program kind of back at a spot where and this year's been absolutely phenomenal as well, but where they got a chance to not only win the SEC for the first time since 2002, but get in the tournament and make a run at it. Win some games. And you talk about 7 seniors. This is the year where you really want to have some seniors. I've been paying attention to you guys kind of going back and forth in the comments section. I love that. Look, there's some Big Ten guys in there talking about Michigan. They beat Ohio State in basketball. Those two teams are in the top 5. And it's, kind of exciting. I'd love to see an Alabama-Ohio State rematch for basketball. And it would not be unprecedented, right? Florida and Ohio State played for football and basketball national championships, I believe, and it really does show how good your school's overall athletics are when you have programs that are able to compete in multiple sports. So, as we look at that, you got to give Nate Oates a lot of credit. And, and everyone in the program is basically following the legend himself, Nick Saban, and it's the football program in the SEC. It drives the bus. And if it doesn't drive the bus, then you better be damn good at basketball. And Kentucky's kind of that program. They are that program in the SEC. And this year, they haven't been good, but everyone else in the SEC, the success of football really pays the bills. And so, having Nick Saban as not only a great football coach, but it's almost like he's the associate athletic director. And, and not saying that he would get involved in any of the other sports, but just the way that he's kind of laid over top of Alabama this standard of excellence, that raising the money to build a baseball stadium that's on par with any baseball stadium, having the money and the resources to go out and redo the basketball arena. All this stuff isn't possible without the success of Nick Saban and the football team. And so when you look at Alabama's athletic department right now, it's him. I mean, really, he's the guy, and going to be interesting to see kind of how things go with basketball. But let's talk a little bit about football. Devon brought up a good point. We were talking about Henry To'o at Tennessee. Is he going to transfer to Alabama? And, Alabama's had a couple of guys transfer out in that linebacker spot. You got Al Cahoe, who's a special teams player. I'm sure he was hoping that this would be the year that he would really break through in that linebacker spot, but he jumped into the transfer portal. Ben Davis, who is a former 5-star linebacker out of Gordo, never really could figure it out at Alabama. At least with Cahoe, he was able to contribute a lot on special teams and block some kicks and stuff like that. I mean, those are really important players to have. But as far as being, an every down linebacker on this team, the competition was just too much, and it just didn't happen. But at least if you're those guys, you can say that you came to Alabama, you won some championships, you got some rings, you learned from the best. And the best part about the transfer waiver or the transfer portal and the way that things work now is if you'd come to Alabama and you try and it doesn't work out where you're, getting the playing time that you expected by the time you're, an upperclassman, like Jalen Hurts, stuck around as a backup to Tua 1 year and then transferred to Oklahoma. And as painful as it was to watch him in a Sooners jersey getting to the college football playoff like he did, we're all pulling for him, hey, that's kind of the same situation that To'o's in for Tennessee. His coach got fired. He's ready to come play somewhere else. And I'm really expecting that when the NCAA says, hey, you can transfer without penalty and play, that he'll be the guy that comes to Alabama. And it's going to be really interesting to see how good Alabama's defense can be this year. And also, with that said, to see if their defense will be good enough to allow the offense to learn how to play at the SEC level, because this offense is going to look brand new. You're going to have some receivers who have some experience. We know Menchie's been, played. He's started for Alabama this year. Slade Bolden played a lot this year. Some of the offensive linemen, they're coming back off of what arguably was the best offensive line that Alabama's ever had. And then you got the best recruiting class ever. But going from the best recruiting class ever to a great on-field product in an SEC that's as tough as this one is could take some time. And what Alabama has been able to do, and let me pause as I say that. Guys, I appreciate all of you being here with us right now. Want to talk to you. We'll take the conversation wherever you want to take it. 205-850-0883. 205-850-0883. Call in and we'll jump right on with you as we talk here on a Sunday night. And this is kind of that dead time before we start getting into fall practice and spring practice and spring ball. And of course, April 17th will be the 8A game where Alabama will play. And that'll be our first look at Paul Tyson, at Bryce Young. Going to be great just to, get a look at this new offense. it was, Menchie had an 8A game that kind of gave us all an idea he was going to be pretty good, right? And who would have thought that with all those receivers that he was behind, talking about the Fantastic Four, that he had the weight behind Ruggs and Judy, Smitty, Waddle. Who would have ever thought that Smitty would be the guy of that group to win the Heisman, But it was that 8A game where this freshman Menchie came in and did his thing, and you're like, hey, you know what? They've got another guy. He's probably not going to play a lot now, but he's the future, and it is going to be his team. As far as the offense goes and the wide receiver spot, just kind of finishing the thought, though, April 17th, Alabama will have that 8A game. We'll get a look at him and the rest of that offense. We'll kind of have an idea of, at that point, who leads the race to be the starting quarterback. I'm expecting Bryce Young. Look, I like in college to have a team who has a quarterback that can run and pass. I just feel more comfortable with that. I remember watching T. Martin at Tennessee. Peyton Manning was their quarterback. They won a lot of games, but they didn't win a championship. They got T. Martin, 4th and 17. You need those yards. The guy, is back in the pocket. Nothing's open, and he runs and gets the first down. You got to have the right guy. You got to have a guy that can stand in the pocket and throw, but at the same time, I love having that dual threat. Now, with that said, Alabama this year didn't need it. And we've seen this team win with drop-back quarterbacks like Jake Coker, A.J. McCarron, Mac Jones. Those guys, they sit back in the pocket and they have strong arms and they're not going to run a lot. But then we've seen them win with Jalen Hurts and Tua, who could get out of the pocket and make things happen. So the way that football's set up now, you got to be able to score points. And I'm curious, as good as this Alabama defense could be this year, how talented they're going to be. Will they get To'o? Is he going to slide in and be as good or better as he was in Tennessee? How many of the freshmen are going to get in? You got some just star talent that are going to be fighting for spots on this team. Can these guys possibly just shut other teams down? And could Alabama be Alabama, where we play with defense first and offense second? That's the big question that I have, kind of moving forward. So I'm excited about 8A, where we get the chance to really see exactly what things are going to look like for the offense. And, that's coming up soon. I'm trying to look in the message here. I love it when you guys, by the way, drop these messages in. How does 8A work? Garrett wants to know. Well, you have two different teams that play, and then all of a sudden, basically, you'll have one offense that will be run with Bryce Young. You'll have one that's Paul Tyson, right? I don't exactly know how they do the teams. Like, sometimes it's and I'm going off the top of my head here, so I may be wrong. But I think sometimes, and that's been different years and different coaches, but sometimes it's first team against second team. Sometimes they just figure out like matchups and stuff. I think they've picked teams before. I know the winning team eats steak, right? And then the losing team eats beans or something. There's some weird stuff like that goes on. I wish, honestly, I wish Andrew Bone or Kyle were here to help me with this. But it's April 17th. I'm not sure what the fan situation will be. I'm hoping by then that we'll be able to go in and just watch the game. This particular tradition, it feels like a game day in Tuscaloosa. You go there on game day, they broadcast the game on ESPN. Kyle and I were talking about last week. We were saying, hey, we should just do like our normal game day, for 8A, which would be a lot of fun. But okay, it's hot dogs and beans for the losers. Winners get steaks. Thanks, C-Roll. Let me throw that up there too, so you guys can see it. I've been around so long, it's like my brain's like, hey, I think this is how it is. I think that's how it is. Honestly, I was doing baseball last year and for the last like 10 years during A-Day. So I really didn't follow that as closely as I am now, now that I'm doing stuff with Bama Insider. And this was a job that, as I take your calls here, 205-850-0883, that I didn't really expect. I just wanted to put my radio show on video and team up with Bone and, has been a buddy of mine for a while, and Kyle, and it's turned into something where we just have a great connection with you guys, and it's been a lot of fun to kind of jump on every once in a while and talk and cover Alabama. It's a great program to cover, and I don't know. I probably should I would say Kyle's the guy eating the steaks and I'm the guy eating the beans, right? But look, the bottom line is that this year's A-Day game is going to be so interesting because we're actually going to get to see two quarterbacks that are really good vying to be the starter. And how's the offense going to look? And what's the defense going to be like? I think the defense this year could be as good as any Alabama defense. I know we're going to lose Patrick Surtain in the draft. I was talking to a buddy of mine in the NFL, and I said, hey, I hope you guys in Jacksonville take Surtain because you're going to just be blown away by how good this guy's going to be. You're going to be blown away at how he's going to be that guy, just like his dad, who's going to go in the NFL. You're going to put him out on an island, and he's going to be tremendous. I'm going to hate that we don't have him at Alabama, but you know what? Part of the deal is coming in, doing your thing, and getting out. The other thing I love about college football is that as tough as it is to say goodbye to those players that we love, Najee Harris. I mean, tell me there's not a better guy than Najee. Forget about how good he is on the football field, but just the way that he conducts himself, he's smart. This guy would be somebody impressive in life outside of sports. I could see him being heavily recruited in a business, as a spokesman. Maybe he'd be on television, but he's great, right? He represents the university with just such class and integrity and intelligence, and you hate to see him go, right? But what's great about college is that you don't get into the point where you're like your whole team ages out. I remember Dallas. I followed the Dallas Cowboys as a kid. That was my team back then, and they had Danny White and Tony Dorsett, and Herschel Walker was there for some years, and it was just amazing to kind of watch this Dallas team. They had a guy named Ed Too Tall Jones and Bill Bates, who played football at Tennessee. He was on their team, and who was the other guy? Randy White. He played at Maryland. We were just talking with Devon about the Terps. Anyway, these guys were great, and I was too young to remember them kind of making those Super Bowl runs and losing games to the Steelers. But when I started getting into them, Tom Landry was kind of getting up there and he wasn't having success, and and all these guys got old and they weren't able to kind of regroup, and then they fired Tom Landry, and that was just to be like firing Nick Saban. Everybody hated it, but if Nick Saban got to the part of his career where he wasn't able to win anymore, he knows that's a tough business. And it was awful, just the whole situation. Then you get Jimmy Johnson, and then all of a sudden you get Emmitt Smith, and you get Troy Aikman, and you get Michael Irving, and you get Jay Novacek, and all of a sudden you got all these new guys coming in and watching that process play out. And again, they were great. They won Super Bowls. They got old, and all of a sudden they dismantled the team, and boom, that's it. What's great, and I love about college, and you guys probably feel the same way, it's tough when you have to say goodbye to players after, so long and kind of wearing that uniform. But what's really cool is that it never gets old. Like we're looking at Chase McClellan right now, and we're going, hey man, Najee, we're going to miss you. But this guy, when he comes into the game, it was like Nick Saban would like have to like turn him down a little bit. Hey, look, we're up by 30 right now. We don't need you like rubbing the scoring on these guys. They basically would put him in the game just because he had earned that time, and he was too good. Had to get him out and give the ball to the next guy. Who's going to be the running back this year? Is it going to be Brian Robinson? See, I think Brian Robinson will touch the ball, and his role will probably look a lot like last year. And I hope that he works hard, but to get back on there. You got the other Robinson. He's good, and he's one of the best in the country. Kamar Wheaton's coming in, and he thinks he's going to run the ball. And no one can tell him that he's not. He's going to go in there, and we'll see. Is he going to be that guy that steps up and takes over and proves that he's the back? But that's the fun part about college, and that's also the great part about where Alabama is right now. When on this site, Bama Insider, on the Rivals Alabama site, we follow these guys from the time that they're like, some of them, like Bones giving us updates on guys sometimes in 10th grade. Like, hey, you know what? This guy's a sophomore in high school. He's somebody to keep an eye on. As soon as they get to the point where if they're in the state of Alabama, Bones on it. They start getting those scholarships offers, Bones on it. Preston, you bring up a great point. Trey Sanders, what's going to happen with him at that running back spot? I don't know, but I hope he comes in and he's ready to go. And he had the car accident and everything else. I can't wait to see how things are going to shake out, not just at the quarterback spot, but at the running back spot. To me, the running back spot is the most interesting. I know you only have one football, but the way that things work most of the time, Derrick Henry, when he was at Alabama, there were injuries and Alabama just had to give him the football all the time. That was their best offense. And Derrick Henry's like that battering ram that it's like, like a picture somebody cut down a telephone pole and put handles on it. And everybody's got one of the handles and run back, run forward, hit the door. Boom, Derrick Henry is so different than the way that things go now, like where you got one guy that you give the ball off to. There's been other years where Alabama's had 3 running backs, 4 running backs, and has figured out a way to get all of those guys in, and they all get to the NFL. I mean, who would have thought that Jacobs would be as good of a player in the NFL? Well, me. And I know that he didn't get a lot of playing time there. He was never the handed off to this guy 30 times running back, but he could catch, he could block, he was a spark. So the days of like having one dude come in and just touch the ball all the time, it's over. Now some years it happens, and this just happened to be one of them, and it was because Najee Harris was so good. But, Derrick Henry was on this show. I sent it to Kyle the other day. It's so funny. Barstool Sports, and I guess in Nashville, they have this like van that they fixed up into a podcast studio, and they're giving Derrick Henry a hard time on and they're like, hey, tell us how much money you got paid at Alabama. And Derrick Henry said, I got paid in championship rings. You talk about it, Heisman, all the other awards that he won and all the championships. That's what makes Alabama great. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time, as nervous as some of us are to see this new offense and what it's going to look like against Miami when Alabama kicks off. The 8A game, which is on April 17th, is going to be our first look at this Alabama offense. So, I'm pretty pumped about this game. And I kind of I don't remember the last time I was this amped up about 8A. Now, actually I do. And it was Nick Saban's first 8A when Alabama went out and got Nick Saban. For those of you that weren't there, let me just tell you, Alabama was terrible. I mean, terrible. I mean, every coach that Alabama's had that's coached has had a good season. And I think a lot of that has to do with this. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just that at Alabama, even your bad years are good years recruiting, right? But I'm going back to Gene Stallings in 1997, right? Was that his last year? 96 was his last year. And they lost a couple of games. They lost like one possession, maybe a field goal game. Might have even been a point or something to Mississippi State. And they lost another game that was close. And Florida kind of was coming up with this new style. You know, they had all this offense, but they Bob Bachroth, which was a horrible athletic director, got rid of him and hired Mike Dubose. And, to Dubose's credit, after, 97, the team lost games they should have won. 98, they weren't that good. I think they did surprise Auburn, I think, right? But then 99, they won the SEC. They still lost to Louisiana Tech. They lost to Tennessee and they lost to Tom Brady, but they were a good team. And these were all the guys that were kind of led by Sean Alexander and Chris Samuels and a bunch of other guys that were really, kind of the last gasp for Gene Stallings. And then after that, I mean, it was hard times in Tuscaloosa, hard times. And, Dubose had some off the field stuff and some on the field stuff. They got rid of him. You got Dennis Franchione came in, and this guy left Alabama after 2 decent years. He won 10 games. Dubose won 10 games. Franchione went to Texas A&M and had one of the biggest collapse careers I think I've ever seen in college football. And everyone in Tuscaloosa was pretty happy. Then from him, it was Mike Price was supposed to be coming over, and you guys know the story. It's rolling, and then Mike Shula, taking over a program that needed a lot of help. It was also on probation. I honestly wanted to see Sylvester Croom picked by Alabama, and I still think that he would have been a better hire at the time than Mike Shula. But I got to give Mike Shula a lot of credit too, because he got Alabama in position to go out and get Nick Saban transitional or whatever. But he won 10 games and a Cotton Bowl, and then but couldn't beat Auburn. And then all of a sudden, since Nick Saban's been in Alabama, it's been great. But when they finally got, and this is where I'm going here, when they finally got to the point where Nick Saban took the job, they had offered it to Rich Rodriguez, who at the time was a big name coach, and he was going to come to Alabama. And apparently his wife, one of the all-time great moves ever, decided that Tuscaloosa wasn't the place for them. So he agreed on the job and he backed out. And we ended up with Nick Saban. And when Nick Saban took over, I mean, you guys remember that he flew into Tuscaloosa and he got the kiss from that lady, and people were just going crazy. The 8A game, and this was before the stadium was over 100,000. 92 some thousand showed up for the 8A game. So what I'm saying is, I'm not quite that excited, but I'm on that level right now to see what happens with this year's team and this year's 8A game. I want to see these quarterbacks. I want to see these receivers. I want to see these running backs. I'm really excited about what we got going on here with this team. And I just think the seniors have left. And the juniors that left too, they have just left this shining example of what it's all about and how you do it. And it's up to these young guys to kind of take over and figure out how to do it. But the recruiting classes have been there. Alabama's got all the momentum right now, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see these guys. All right, well, look. The last call right now, if you want to get in on the conversation, 205-850-0883. Because if you don't call in, I'm about to wrap things up. just to kind of review what we got going on. And you guys are debating right now, Mike Shula. Mike Shula lost, was it 5 straight? Didn't he lose 4 straight to Auburn, right? And then they couldn't beat LSU. And the game that killed me, though, it was the losses to the teams like Mississippi State. That it was like you just never knew what to expect. And I'm sure that's more the kind of the way it is. The thing about Mike Shula is like he's left and we haven't heard from him since. His dad made comments about his dad, who was just ironically coached the Miami Dolphins, where Alabama ended up getting Nick Saban from. But it was like, Ivan Maisel, the great writer, and he is a great writer, wrote this big story about Shula getting fired. And, like Alabama had these unrealistic expectations. I bet that they've deleted that off the internet. You probably couldn't find that story anymore if you wanted it. But look, I get it. I remember people saying at the time that Alabama had these expectations, the fan base had these expectations that were unrealistic, that basically you needed to accept a 7-8 win Mike Shula year, and Mal Moore refused. And that's kind of going back to that's probably why I'm not an athletic director, because I would probably not have fired Avery Johnson the year that they did. I don't think I would have fired him. I liked him. I would not have gotten rid of him. But if you're going to be a program that is moving forward, you got to always have very high standards. And they went out and hired Nate Oates, and he's been excellent. And I hope that they have that same standard with all the sports, and I've talked about the women's team that hasn't made a tournament since 2000, I think. And they haven't really sniffed one. Now they're going to have a chance to make one this year. But I mean, is our standard like barely sliding in, or is it that you want to get in and win championships? Right. And I feel like when Mal Moore went out and got Nick Saban, the standard was, this is Alabama and we expect championships. And even though everyone that was surrounding the program doing the job I'm doing right now, we're sitting here talking, they felt like that, it's one of those situations where I'm saying to myself, winning enough games to win 10 games every 5 years isn't good enough. All right, let's go to the phones, and I'll take one more call. How's it going? Where are you calling from tonight?
Hi, David from Birmingham.
Hey, what's up, David?
Question. If Alabama, if Mike Shula had successfully recruited Tim Tebow, would Nick Saban had ever come to Alabama?
Hey, he wouldn't have.
I know it.
He wouldn't have. That's the craziest question of all time.
If Tim Tebow had gone to Alabama like he could have gone to, I think Shula could still be at Alabama.
Do you think Shula would have won like we're kind of used to now?
Well, if Shula had fired Dave Rader, offensive coordinator, yes. But dear God, he loved Raiders for some reason. Kind of like the way I feel about Saban and his affinity for Pete Golding. Even though I think Pete Golding, I've cut Pete Golding out for the last 2 years. But I think Pete Golding's going to have a resurrection career this year. But no, to me, it's like, I really believe that Shula could have the loss to Auburn would have gone away, the LSU loss would have gone. Tebow was really magical what he did. So.
The funny.
I got another question.
Well, let me just talk on this. Hold that for a second, because you bring up something that has been debated amongst my friends off the air for many years, right? I never ever thought that Tebow was coming. Now, a lot of my friends did. And I'm going, okay, they followed that recruiting process. Tebow was someone who everyone knew was going to be a superstar because he was in high school. He's a special kid. I think he's a special person. I did not like him that much until he showed the humility after Alabama beat him in 2009 to say, hey, I want these guys to win a championship. I almost went to school there. It's a great place. Honestly, I've never seen an athlete do that before. And that honest, and it made me feel bad for cheering against him so bad when he was at Florida. But, the guy had I don't remember all the stuff, but he had like a Florida Gators poster. He had like Christmas ornaments that were Florida Gators, like everything, like his card tag was Florida Gators. And Shula put his whole career thinking that this guy was coming to Alabama. And I just never bought into it. And honestly, we all watched on that signing day, and we were let down, which was kind of really something that was very normal to us in the Shula era. It always felt like when what you expected to happen didn't happen. When you thought you were going to beat Auburn, you didn't. When you thought you were going to beat LSU, you didn't. But he's a great guy too. Father Holloway used to always tell me about how good of a person he was. So I know he's a good guy, but he just wasn't the right football coach for Alabama. And I think you're right. I don't know if he would still be the coach right now, but I think if he would have got Tim Tebow, we would not have gotten Nick Saban.
Right. Now, the next debate, which is to me, who's better, Bear Bryant or Nick Saban? I think probably Saban is. But if you look at the schools in the country when Bear Bryant was coaching, there was a lot of great coaches in America. Darrell Royal, Texas, Frank Wills, Arkansas, Eric Parsons in Notre Dame, Dan Devine, Notre Dame, Tom Osborne, Nebraska, Barry Switch, Oklahoma. There are no great coaches that are outside of Clemson coach
Tebow.
Tebow, and go ahead and throw Kirby in, I guess. I think he's the backstabber. Kirby being number 2, and then you want Brian Day, I guess. But there's not a lot of great coaches in America right now. There were a lot of great coaches. Bear Bryant was coaching. There's a lot of good, talented coaches. Oh, including Tim Becker or Woody Hayes.
Yeah. Right. Let me give you my thoughts on this. There's a couple things now. I'm going to start with Saban. What he has been able to accomplish in this era of football is amazing. I mean, really, it's amazing. Alabama's been number 1 at some point for the last 13 seasons. And they're always playing. These games are meaningful. They're always playing for a chance to win a national title, and they've won that. And they've won so many SEC titles. So what he's been able to accomplish now is absolutely amazing. And I'm glad that I've gotten to see it and be a weird small part of it. But Bear Bryant was an icon too. And, the era that he was in, he was the best. And he was an Alabama guy. Now I think Nick Saban is kind of, he's become our guy now, but he would have been LSU's guy, or he would have been Michigan State's guy, like he would have been whoever's guy that he went to and coached football. I mean, he's just a football coach, right? And he's a great football coach, maybe the best of all time. What I love about Bear is that Bear was Alabama's guy, and he played at Alabama, and he loved Alabama, and he left a good job to come to Alabama because it was Alabama, not because we paid him more money, not because it worked out perfectly for, the timing of his career. He came to Alabama to coach because he wanted to go to Tuscaloosa and make Alabama a champion again, something that they had been in the past. So it's hard for me to kind of look back and say, hey, one guy over the other. We're still talking about Bear Bryant, not just what he did as a head coach and all the titles that he won, but also the style, the houndstooth, the stories. His name is still synonymous with Alabama. I think Nick Saban's name is synonymous with greatness, but it's also synonymous with LSU and it's synonymous with, Kent State and with Michigan State. So I guess just being, someone like Bear Bryant who went to school at Alabama, there's a part of me that appreciates that aspect of the Bears' career and it makes him special to me as well. But at the same time, no one ever has had a run like Nick Saban has. And you can take the time that he was at LSU and you can put it back right up to the time that he's been in Tuscaloosa. Bear Bryant had success. He did a lot of great things, but if those are the two best coaches of all time, honestly, you can't beat Nick Saban. He's got it's just in the amount of time that he's been there, and he's not even done yet, right? So Bear Bryant, his career is in the bank, like it's over. This guy's still in the middle of doing something. So I think Nick Saban wins that. I think he wins that debate.
I do too. I agree with you. But I talk to people all the time. Who's better? Like this in politics this year, who's the better Republican president? Trump or Reagan? I'm like, oh, there's no doubt in my mind, Trump is better. And they go, why? And I said, well, I gave my reasons why. Why is Bear Bryant better than Nick Saban? I said, he's not. I think Saban's probably better, but at least there was no Joe Paterno. There was Joe Paterno at Penn State.
Right.
And I don't go through the list of coaching back when Bear coached. Bear had a lot of competition. Nick has no competition. So, Gus Malzahn, come on.
Yeah, right. Clearly, he's the best coach in the country.
Now, I got another question. I think I don't have to worry about this. Alabama's got a load of running backs. If Bear Bryant was coaching, that would not be a problem. He'd find a way to play 9 games. But I disagreed with Saban last year playing Jaleel Billingsley at kick return. That made no sense to me. Put Rodell Williams, whoever these backup running backs are, put these other running backs. Let them play on that kickoff return. I'm not second guess Saban. I don't know anything. I don't know anything near what he knows. I disagree with that move.
I'm always worried anytime that anybody goes back and returns kicks. When they would put Smitty back there for punts, it drove me nuts. After Waddle got hurt, I was like, man, please don't get this guy hurt. Yeah. But you know what? The thing is, like you said, like it's Nick Saban. This is his show. He's going to run it the way he's going to run it. And, Billingsley is one of my favorite returning players. I can't wait to see what this guy's going to do. But I'm like you. When he was back there returning kicks, it looked awkward, didn't it?
It just looked like slow motion. Like, they put a punt on punt return. Slade Bolden, just catch the ball. Hand to the referee, go to the huddle, and go run the play. Don't worry about being a hero. Alabama's got Mac Jones. 5 plays later, they're gonna score anyway. So, but I say all this like I'm an expert. No, well, I was a sportscaster down in Florida about 20 years ago, and I know you say, why do you sound like Ed Oster right now? Well, 5 years ago, I lost my voice. But I played. I was a walk-on at Florida State.
Oh, wow.
And Johnny Musso is my cousin.
Oh, that's cool.
So I grew up a big family fan. And,
did you play with Burt Reynolds?
No, God, no. Bert's older than me. But I do know Bert. No, wait a minute. I do know Bert. I did know Bert.
Yeah.
But I met him, and we actually came. I'm not saying like, bosom buddies like that. Every time he comes to Tallahassee, I see him. He goes, "You're not speaking?" I say, "No, I'm not speaking. If you kind of want to harass you, everybody harasses you."
Well, great call tonight. Thanks for jumping in, and
yeah.
we invite you to do it again. Yeah, you stirred up some conversation there, because those are two topics that I've debated with other people numerous times, especially Tebow to Tuscaloosa.
I enjoyed that first call tonight. That guy knew what he was talking about. He was very knowledgeable. He made it enjoyable.
Yeah, thank
Devon,
you. Yeah, Devon's awesome.
I was born in D.C., so the first thing that triggered caught my ear right there. He said, I don't remember anything about it. My dad was in State Andrews Air Force Base. About a year and a half later, we moved back to Alabama. So, but I was born up there. So, no, this is a great show. I enjoy it.
Hey, thank you so much. We'll call back in. I think we're scheduled for another call-in show on Wednesday. We got one every Sunday night as well, like this. And then tomorrow night, we'll have Monday Night Quarterback at 6 o'clock. Kyle and Bone will be on Tuesday. So we got a lot of stuff coming up. Thanks for calling in, and you really stirred up some great conversation. Roll Tide, my friend.
Yes, sir.
All right, one more time. Let's go back to the phones. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Jerry in Austin, also known as Bama Longhorn.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, a little bit choppy, but I can hear you. You've got a lot of Alabama coaches in Longhorn country these days, huh?
That's right. I'm a Bama grad, but I'm living out here with the Longhorns. So, I wear the Bama attire and the Longhorn attire, but the passion's Bama, that's for sure. But ever since that championship game, when Colt went down, most of the Longhorns, you could see a little bit of a snarl in their eyes when they see my Bama hat.
I was at that game. That to me, that 2009 season, special team. That's the most special championship to me of all of them. Just because, when I went to school, we didn't win any championships, and we didn't get to any championship games. We lost a lot, and then to kind of see Nick Saban build the program and go out there. I always had a fascination with Texas, still do. I love the colors that the Longhorns wear, and the fact that Texas is a great place, and I've always liked Texas. I just thought the uniforms looked great, and the teams ran out on the field, and for Alabama to beat them, it couldn't have been any better, especially at the Rose Bowl.
Oh, I know. I had a Longhorn shirt on now. I mean, my passion is Bama, but it's. The passion is here, the same for the Longhorns, and I moved. My kids they've been raised here, and I've been here for years and years. So, but the passion's Bama. But it was sort of noticeable once we won that game. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah, once we won that game, I mean they they just hated that so much. Now, instead of being a good sport, we've never beaten Texas before that, I don't believe. So, once they see the Bama hat and the memory comes back, and I still wear the 2009. Got a hat right here, the championship hat.
Yeah.
I still wear it to my kids' baseball and flag football practices, and you see the Longhorn guys, they notice it, and then they you can see their eyes register and like, oh crap, that's the hat from when they beat Texas.
Yeah, but two programs that moved in a different way. I mean, who would have thought that Texas would have become kind of a middle ran in their league? And I've always blamed Texas for the breakup of the Big 12. I mean, when they started the Longhorn Network, the other teams felt like that they didn't really like that, and Nebraska jumped out, and obviously Missouri and all these other teams went different. Texas A&M, I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I mean, all I know is that they broke up a really good football conference. And I would just have never thought that things would have gotten so mediocre there. I don't want to say bad. I mean, but when Maryland beat them twice in consecutive years in football, and I mean, you talk about a program with zero momentum, I was really shocked. So I think Steve Sarkisian is going to do a really good job of bringing talent back to Texas and competing again on that level. But so what were you going to ask? I know I rudely interrupted you, and I apologize.
Well, that's okay. No, I had a couple of points. One was where you're headed there, and I agree about the breakup. I think the Texas sort of thought they belonged with the Samfords and there's a couple of comments from the chancellor out here and president or whatever he is, that they thought they saw themselves academically a little better than the Southeastern Conference, but I think they made a bad mistake letting A&M go to the Southeastern Conference and pick up on and that's helped Alabama with the recruiting because the way the conference is dominated, the players want to go to the SEC and they see what Bama's done. But a couple of points. One, you talked through, I don't know what year you graduated, but you talked through a little bit of the years with the different coaches, and Franchione left to go to A&M. I mean, that was the most disgusting thing I'd ever seen. I think A&M got a little bit of the karma from it. But do you remember how he promised parents on the plane right back from the non-bowl game in Hawaii where we scheduled that 12th game, and he promised he wasn't going anywhere and all this stuff, and then like 3 days later he leaves in the middle of the night, goes to A&M. He doesn't even tell the players he's leaving.
Right.
And I just think the way that was handled was so disgusting, and they got what they deserved. And I rarely pulled against the coach like I pulled against him, and he did something. But so compare that to the way Texas handled it. And of course, they didn't have much choice. I mean, Sark was going into a national championship game, and I really don't like the way Sark pulled the coaches that we used to recruit Texas. I don't blame him, but I just thought it was sort of weird that he's pulling our best coaches for recruiting Texas, but I don't like it. But it is if he coaches a good game and don't show up and we win, then I won't badmouth him, but I don't like what he did. But if I was in his shoes, I don't say I blame him. But comparing how they handled the hiring with Franchione, not even saying bye to Bama players, you got to say at least it was handled a little bit more gracefully with Texas than it was with A&M.
Oh, yeah. I remember, I'll tell you what, I felt the same way about Franchione. And I remember when Oklahoma beat them like 77-0. I've never been happier at a game that didn't have anything to do with Alabama to watch him just get absolutely floored. And, that was kind of that was the end of it. I mean, you lose that game like that. The fact that Texas A&M got beat by, I think it was Oklahoma, right, by Bob Stoops, and that you lose a game like that, it's a game that you expect to win if you're at Texas A&M, not to lose, and then you lose 77-0. I mean, that's a career ender right there. And the crazy thing is that Nick Saban, even if he does not like you, does not do that to you. I wish he would. Honestly, I wish he would. They would have beat LSU that way this year. I think if anybody deserved it, it was Ed Orgeron, but he won't do it. Bob Stoops, though, I mean, he basically cracked Dennis Franchione's neck as far as his coaching career goes, because after that game, it was over. It's done. Yeah,
my in-laws are a lot, mostly A&M, and I remember, and of course I'm not allowed to talk football at my mother-in-law's, put it like that. So, but after I said when they hired him, I said, this is bad karma. I said, I will not quit pulling against A&M until they fire him. And once they do, I'll call it even and we'll go our merry way. But until they fire Franchione, they're a dreaded enemy because of the way they handled that. And then sure enough, just like you, I'm like, okay, that's going to be it for them. But at least Texas, you know, they recognize the better we look, if we win that championship, the better their hire looks. They needed Sark to win that game so that they look better hiring. But then that leads me to the next question. Do you believe, and I don't, but I want to hear what you think. Do you believe that Texas sank as low as they needed to, like we did with the Price and the Shula and Shula putting the ball up on the goal line and never scoring when we needed to? Do you believe they sank as low as our athletic department probably felt and our trustees probably felt and we felt? We were to the point, hey, if we can get a Saban, you know what? I'm going to quit judging and I'm just going to leave it up to him, you know? And that's how I felt. I'm like, okay, I didn't like some of the things he did once in a while, but he dang sure was doing a better job than we've ever had. And I just dreamed that the day we'd get a coach like him. So once he came, I was like, okay, I don't really agree with everything, but you know, he knows what he's doing a lot better than I do. So I'm for him. But I don't think Texas quite got as low as we did. What do you think?
No. I think that's a great question. Because I lived there. I remember going through it. You know, I can't even. It got to the point where Alabama was losing games to teams that were awful. You know, right. 3-win seasons. The biggest problem, in my opinion, and I love the fact that I'm on here and not working for a site or something that's run by the university, because I can say this and I don't have to worry about my job security. But it was the people, and some of them are still there, that run the athletic department that messed it up so bad. There's always this political back and forth with a lot of the coaches in the different sports. They all want this and they want that, and they got their person here and this, the media relations is part of it, who's the athletic directors and all that kind of stuff. And then they got the boosters. You can go ahead and mix them in there. This guy gives this much money. He's got influence here and there, and they're pulling here and there. And they say, hey, look, you know what? We want this coach out. We want this coach in. And, and they have an influence because they help pay for it and all that kind of stuff. It got to the point after Gene Stallings left that it was just mayhem. You had coaches. I from what I understand, and I got some pretty good sources, we had some of our own coaches and people in the athletic department that turned us in when we got in trouble with the NCAA both times. Kind of like what Tennessee just did to themselves. You guys still hear me? You might have to call back because you got. See if that fixes it here. I'm kind of going back and forth. Can you hear me? Okay. Anyway, just to finish this thought, and I got a really weird buzz in my headset right now. But basically, when it got to the point where coaches and athletic directors, and assistant athletic directors, and this person and that person and this guy and that guy that had different roles were pushing for influence. And at Alabama, it always comes down to the success of the football program. That's where you're going to win and lose. You're going to win and lose on the success of the football program. And so when we hit rock bottom, it got, and the story goes like this. Mal Moore went to the Auburn game, and at Auburn, you got to walk near the fans on your way out. And apparently, on his way out, he got basically harassed by the Auburn fans and said, "I'm not going through this again." And that was the push after, I guess at that point it would have been 5 fingers where he said, I'm not going through this anymore. We're going to go out and get the best coach we can get. We're going to build these facilities up. That was rock bottom. When Auburn beat Nick Saban for the first time, I remember Nick Saban saying, and great call, by the way, from Austin. I remember Nick Saban saying, this is just another football game. But what he found out, and he never said that since, is that it's not just another football game. The Iron Bowl is everything. So you lose to those guys 6 times in a row. That 5 times in a row was rock bottom, and I don't think Texas has kind of gotten to that point yet. So anyway, great call, and this has been a fun show, guys. But look, I'm not an expert on all the equipment that I use, but I can tell you right now, and thanks, Kyle, for watching, and all you guys for watching. I've appreciated it. Tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, we're going to do Monday Night Quarterback. Make sure that you check that out. It'll be with Tony Tsoukalas, who's the beat writer for Bama Insider, and Trey Yanity. Kyle Henderson will have different reports. Andrew Bone and Kyle will be together to talk recruiting on Tuesday. But look, love the conversation. Appreciate all of you guys. Great calls tonight. And this was a lot of fun. Thanks for watching. And make sure you check out Bama Insider, the Alabama rival site, as well for the latest information on coaches and on recruits and getting you set for spring practice in the spring game that's coming up. All right, I'm Mick Gillespie.